In a world of new threats and new challenges, you can choose leadership that has been tested and proven. 4 years ago, I promised to end the war in Iraq. We did. I promised to refocus on the terrorists who actually attacked us on 9/11, and we have. We've blunted the Taliban's momentum in Afghanistan, and in 2014, our longest war will be over. A new tower rises above the New York skyline. Al-Qaeda is on the path to defeat, and Osama bin Laden is dead.
President Barack Obama accepting the Democratic Party's nomination for president again tonight. The reference there to our longest war will be over in 2014. It is already our nation's longest war. Right now it's 2012. That means that our nation's longest war will not be over this year or the next year, but the year after that. And they're still already talking about there being residual forces there. That, however, is a lot more than the Republican opponents to this president were able to say about Afghanistan, even obliquely in their own convention about that, something that's really was seized on by the Democrats in this week at their convention, and tonight by the president, by the vice president, and all night long at the Democrats' final night of their convention. We go down to Andrea Mitchell, who's in Charlotte, who's on the floor, who has seen all of these speeches and many before these. Andrea, I'm wondering, on that issue of Afghanistan, how you feel like the Democrats handled it and what you think about their decision to front page it.
I think that decision would have been made pretty much because of that commitment. But after Tampa, it was absolutely a certainty. The fact that the Republican speeches, particularly Mitt Romney's speech, made no mention of Afghanistan, made it certain that they were going to focus on this in a very big way here. And you heard not only the president, who spoke so memorably about it, but Joe Biden talking about 6,473 fallen angels, about more than 49,000 wounded soldiers, about those who have to come home and who need the help of the Veterans Assistance and their medical care, that they will need care for the rest of their lives. They talked about the government not as an obstacle to getting things done, but the government as a necessary component to getting things done. So when they talk about contrast, it's clearly a contrast that they laid out. And Mitt Romney, I guess, in that 3 or 4 line response today, indeed said that it is a choice. The choices are very clear. This was a values speech. It was red meat, certainly, for the base. But the values that were expressed by both Joe Biden and Barack Obama tonight could not be clearer. And especially, as you were pointing out, all of the references, more than 20 references in the president's speech to the word choice. And you know, when he spoke about choice for women, that was one of the loudest cheers.
Andrea, let me ask you specifically on this Afghanistan point. You have followed both of these campaigns closely. You've gotten to know something about not only how these candidates think about these issues, but who advises them on it. We see the Romney-Ryan folks scrambling already to try to make up for having ignored the war during their convention. Mitt Romney is essentially off the campaign trail, but did do an event, did find what time to do an essentially off-camera event today around military issues. You can see them planning to do something. I honestly, and I say this without a hint of criticism in it, I have no idea what Mitt Romney will say he's going to do in Afghanistan when somebody finally tells him he has to say something about Afghanistan. Do we know anything about what his views are on the war? He has said, I mean, the Democrats hit him for it, but he really has taken just about every position you could take on how to get out.
And it's been in recent months and in the debates and the primaries. So I'm frankly confused about it. I do think that they have to be a lot clearer about the war. I guess during the convention, the best information that I have is that they felt that the economy was the note that they had to hit, because they do have an advantage in all of the polls in terms of Mitt Romney's ability. The people think that Mitt Romney has a much better ability to fix the problems of the economy, and certainly it is something that President Obama is vulnerable on. We'll see what those job numbers are tomorrow. If any early indicators are to be believed, the market certainly seem to be pretty excited. That's not always a good measure, and people who make predictions based on that are usually wrong. But the fact is the president does know. He was briefed about 5:30 today after the close of the markets, as we've been reporting, as is always been the custom in all administrations, by his chief economic advisor. They know what those numbers are. And this is the next to last big jobs report, of course, before the closing report, which will indicate what is going to happen on Election Day, most likely. But clearly, the Romney campaign has got to come to grips with this foreign policy issue of the wars, and the president took it on head on.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrea, thank you. Thank you very much for that. And that, Steve, let me put this to you. That has been the explanation, the political explanation for what happened last week with the Republicans on the issue of Afghanistan. It is, I think it is incredibly frustrating to hear, we think we only need to market Mitt Romney as on the economy because obviously that's his strength, that's what we want to run on, and we didn't feel like we needed to address those other things. There is no commander-in-chief of the U.S. economy. A president makes economic decisions, absolutely, but the president can order just about nothing to happen on the U.S. economy. A president can nominate Supreme Court nominees and can order the U.S. military to do what he thinks it is in his best judgment is the right thing for this country. That's what he can directly control. And not a word. And do we know if he's got advisors on issues like Afghanistan and foreign policy who are bringing in any post-Bush-Cheney administration ideas? Do we know that he's being advised by Republicans who are thinking about things differently than the last Republican administration?
I don't know the answer to it. He's not talked about it a great deal during the course of the campaign. We disagree on many things. We agree 100% with each other on this.
Yeah.
The omission of Afghanistan in the speech was a huge mistake by the campaign. The Obama campaign took full political advantage of it tonight. But there's a point beyond politics, and that point is there is no higher responsibility for a president, for the commander-in-chief, than to the men and women that he commands. We have 85,000 men and women in harm's way at this exact moment in Afghanistan. And the country deserves to hear these candidates talk about our longest war and how we're going to leave Afghanistan with honor and with this country's head held high.
Yeah. In your answer to your question, we got a little reference tonight about who's advising Mitt Romney. John Kerry told us that he had Bush neocons around him.
Yeah.
Now, so I'm sure John Bolton's right in there somewhere. And as far as Afghanistan, they did mention Afghanistan. They just turned it over to Clint Eastwood and had him answer the empty chair and then made a reference to Russia.
But the Eastwood thing, I mean, and when John Kerry mocked the multiple positions that Mitt Romney's taken on Afghanistan, what he was highlighting is that they're in something of a political box, I think. I actually think the one space they have politically would be to get to the president's left on Afghanistan,
yes,
as you just said, and say, why are we going to stay in the longest war in the country's history and keep it there till 2014 if everyone and all the reporting that's coming out of Afghanistan says essentially it's a foregone conclusion that the government that we have been supporting is going to fall apart when we leave? And Clint Eastwood very succinctly put it, if you say you're going to leave at a certain point, why not just leave now? But of course, institutionally, it's impossible for Mitt Romney to make that case because of who controls foreign policy in the apparatus of the Republican Party. And so he's caught between those two
cutting and
things.
running. They've always come up with the cut and run line, and so
he's just following it blindly,
nowhere,
not even understanding what it means in this case. John Huntsman on this issue sketched out very clear, hard-nosed, Republican-sounding traditional line on this that didn't make him into an isolationist, that made him a realist on this subject, and he was laughed off the stage.